Today, I'm delighted to welcome Amy Baxendale, Global Future of Workforce Director at Arcadis, to the Digital HR Leaders podcast. Amy, welcome to the show. To kick things off, could you start by sharing a little bit about yourself and maybe what brought you into the world of HR?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you so much for having me, David. It's wonderful to be here. So I'm originally from the UK. I moved to the Middle East for 4.5 years, and then I've been living here in Australia for the last 8 years. About me, I love to travel. I'm actually lucky enough to have just got back from a 3-month sabbatical where my husband and I spent 2 months traveling around South America and then a month kayaking around Falklands, South Georgia and Antarctica. So I feel very, very privileged to have had that opportunity. What brought me into the world of HR? Well, I actually mistakenly sat in the wrong lecture theatre when looking at universities. I decided in that moment to move from planning to study agricultural economics to actually doing business studies, specialising in HR instead. And since then, I've always been in people and culture, working across many domains. And as you said, now the Future of Workforce Director for Arcadis. I actually first joined Arcadis 21 years ago, and this is my 15th role in my 4th different country working with Arcadis. I am actually a boomerang employee. I did leave for 18 months and come back, but still a long time. And as an organisation, Arcadis delivers sustainable design, architecture, engineering and consultancy solutions for our clients, really around kind of natural and built assets. And we're a Dutch company with about 36,000 people.
Perfect. Well, we're going to be talking a bit about internal mobility, and you certainly had a lot of internal mobility, 15 roles in 21 years. That's very impressive. I love the job title, Global Future of Workforce Director. Tell us a little bit more about that and what's within your remit, because this is a job role we're starting to see more companies bring into their HR organisation.
Yeah, so it's a new role that I moved into actually when I came back from my sabbatical. So still very new and kind of forming. But I guess the focus of it is really enabling us as a business to really focus on the future of work, the future of workforce, the future of workplace, work style, and start to really think about how do we prepare our people and therefore our business to really be future-proof for the future. So very much focusing on thinking not only about the skills we need and therefore our skills-powered organisation journey, which we'll talk about today, but also really starting to think, what does that mean in terms of how we need to set ourselves up, how we need to be structured, how we need to look, feel and act as an organisation, and how our leaders need to lead in a future-focused world.
Yeah, and we'll probably touch on all elements of that, I'm guessing, during the conversation as well, because, the promise of AI is that it's going to make things very different, both in terms of how work gets done, but also how we lead as well moving forward. Absolutely. So it's going to be it's an interesting time. It's a great role for you, I think, to have. You mentioned that you started your skills-based or skills-powered organisation at Arcadis 3 years ago. What was the catalyst that sparked the transformation or the desire to move to be skills-powered?
Yeah, and I will say we're terrible at acronyms at Arcadis. So we talk about being a skills-powered organisation and we refer to it as SPO. So I'm really sorry. I'll try my hardest to remember. But if you hear me say SPO, it is our skills-powered organisation journey. But I guess to answer your question, there's both external influences that absolutely were at play, but more importantly, it was internal pain points that really served as the catalyst to start our journey. So prior to starting, obviously clients have always been a front and center for us as an organization. So primarily to meet our clients' needs wherever they are in the world, we recognized we needed to better understand the skills we have, where in the world those skills are, and actually have a more seamless way to access that talent. So for us, enabling global work sharing, breaking down silos and strengthening partnership and collaboration globally is part of our strategic intent. And that's really so that we can unlock the full potential of Arcadis talent globally. So through our skills-powered journey, we're really looking at ensuring we've got the right expertise available to deliver exceptional outcomes for our clients, wherever the clients are in the world and wherever our people are. But at the same time, we also recognised that, our clients' needs are changing. There are new industry players coming into the market. And so we need to be able to respond to skills gaps in areas where we're prioritising growth for those two reasons. So identifying those gaps and then developing the talent strategies we need to respond to them, we saw as being really, really critical for business resilience and therefore a key catalyst. One of the catalysts that always upsets me is we unfortunately recognise that people were choosing to leave Arcadis due to a lack of career visibility. And so we really recognised we needed to enable more visibility and personalisation. As you said, David, earlier, the fact I've been so privileged to have such a, what I fondly call squiggly career, it really devastates me when I hear other people say it's easier to find a job outside Arcadis than in Arcadis. So that, was a real driver for us. Another strategic driver was really around maximising the productivity gains from standardisation, automation, and as you say, integration of AI, because we really wanted to be able to make sure we could help our people to see how they can use the time they've freed up to pivot to more value-adding work. So to really, I guess, help us reduce the resistance to the changes in how work gets done. Because that standardization, automation, AI piece is critical for us as an industry and as an organization. Arcadis tends to grow both organically, but also through acquisition. So another strategic driver for us was recognizing that we needed to quickly understand the skills of our new colleagues, be able to connect them to client needs, but also help them to see pathways to grow in the new business. So, they're excited about joining the new organization. And I guess the last catalyst, David, I'd probably say is really importantly for us, a core priority is to make sure we're using data to enable more inclusive and merit-based talent practices, but also decisions across the organisation as a whole.
So it's pretty comprehensive then, and it obviously start with the business challenge that you're trying to solve, which exactly. I think is good advice for anyone looking to potentially move to a skills-powered organisation, because it might not suit every company. And what it sounds like is there's definitely an employee lens. Obviously, you talked about people leaving and citing that they felt that they had no potential to progress their career. So obviously, you're looking at, I presume, at supporting things like personalized learning, career mobility, projects and stuff. Absolutely. But what it also sounds like is it's a way of kind of linking it with strategic workforce planning as well, because as a business, as things like AI and other challenges that we're facing as organisations, such as shrinking labour market populations, all that sorts of stuff, strategic workforce planning becomes ever more important. And a great way to do strategic workforce planning is to understand the skills that you've got, the skills that you need, and put processes in place to try and close that gap.
Yeah. And I think really importantly for us, yes, there's people benefits. Of course there is. And they're often the easier ones to articulate. But genuinely, this was driven from a business pain point, business need perspective, because the business really saw the benefits. So, and I totally agree with you, David, and I'll probably say this 10 times today. But one of the biggest bits of advice I have is absolutely focus on the pain points relevant to your business, to your stakeholders. Where we started and the priorities for us will be very different to where someone else starts and the priorities for them. And there's never a right place to start, but it's the right place is what's important for your business. So yeah, totally agree with you on that.
And we'll talk about things like, getting senior stakeholders on board, and we'll talk about governance, and I'm sure we'll talk about data at some point. It wouldn't be an episode of the Digital HR Leaders podcast if we didn't. I know that you obviously you've been looking at this for a couple of years, but you've actually just started to implement it. But what are some of the challenges that you've faced along that journey, and now that you've started implementing your skills powered model?
Yeah, like you say, we sort of started the journey, and I probably will talk about it a bit later, about 3 years ago. But as you say, we only sort of started implementation in May last year. So we're just kind of over a year in reality. So we are very much still encountering challenges and opportunities that we didn't expect every single day. I think the reality is that, embarking on this journey is a mammoth challenge. It feels a mammoth challenge. It is when you start it. It is as you go through it. Because you are ultimately transforming your organisation. So naturally, there will be bumps, challenges and curveballs along the way. And I'd be really insincere if I didn't say that is part of my everyday. But I suppose to just pull out on a few, and I'll try maybe to think about them more in the more positive lens of how you deal with it. I think the first thing for us in terms of how we tried to sort of from the start consider challenges and approach it was to really approach this as a human-centered change program. It's not a technology implementation. This isn't about implementing a shiny new tool. It really is about transforming Arcadis with people at the heart of the change. So co-creation, making sure we've got diverse voices, tailored communications, all of those things have been really critical to help both tackle the challenges as they've come out and also to drive adoption and engagement as well. As you said, data, we couldn't have the conversation without talking about data privacy, ethical AI. They're paramount when you're on this journey, right? And for us, navigating different privacy regulations across over 30 jurisdictions, that's required really close collaboration with legal, with privacy, and really ensuring transparency for our people in how the AI generates recommendations, and mitigating unconscious bias continues to be essential for us in terms of building that trust and equity that I talked about at the start in terms of one of our drivers. Works councils, engagement with works councils is critical for global deployment. In Europe, securing that approval does take significant time. So again, anyone with European operations, that is really a lot of effort, a lot of time, but it's really vital. And for us, it was really important because our ambition of that equitable experiences for all Arcadians meant that we had to make sure we did that journey as well. So really, really sort of important challenge, but also plan that's needed there. One of our biggest challenges, and this in part probably comes down to data, but our biggest challenge has really been navigating inconsistencies in application of our job architecture globally. So we thought we had a globally aligned, consistently applied job architecture. When we started, that became apparent it wasn't quite as consistent as we might have liked. And that does impact the accuracy of personalised recommendations. When you look at it from a tech perspective, that does kind of impact that. And obviously that then impacts the perception of people about the quality of the recommendations made to them. So for anybody listening, if you haven't started your skills journey, at least having a plan to ensure that consistency in job architecture as a baseline is in my mind really, really critical. As an organisation, we are a client-facing, project-based business. So the ability for our people to remain billable with clients is critical. But at the same time, we've had to really make sure people understand that time invested in creating your SPO profile and training the AI is really, really important, because that's what unlocks those personalised learning opportunities and recommendations that you sort of referred to earlier. And of course, we also need to balance the utilisation on projects with time for our people to learn through gigs, through new roles in the business, by accessing development opportunities, etc. So it's really important, but it is challenging. So for us, partnering with finance to really make sure we're embedding non-billable time into business plans at the start of the year goes some way to maintaining that balance, because obviously we need to ensure we continue delivering for our clients whilst also fostering that long-term growth and development of our people and Arcadis as a whole. Another thing I would say that we've sort of done to help with the challenge or the risks associated is we've really taken a test and learn approach from the start. So that's been really sort of central to our design of our journey. So we early on sort of ran two key test phases. So one we called early adopters, and then we did a larger pilot. And they were really to experiment both with the technology, but more importantly also with the new ways of working. As I say, this is about changing the organisation, not just a technology. We then ran another pilot earlier this year prior to launching gigs in our Wave 1 countries, which we actually did at the end of last month. So all of those kind of test and learn phases have really helped us to refine the user experience, to generate insights, which have helped us then to kind of improve adoption and really tailor messaging to the different needs of different personas. And that testing, I guess, has also helped us get that momentum with participants then acting as change champions as they share their positive experiences across the business as well. The last thing I'd probably say, I probably could go on about challenges for ages, but I'll try not to make it sound too hard. But I think the one thing I would say is you just got to remember that future-proofing takes time. And I have to keep telling myself this. This is not a quick fix. This really is a multi-year whole business change program. And so you can keep reiterating to the business that, this is a long-term endeavour, but it's really natural that a business starts to want to see results quickly and early. So I think continuously reinforcing the message that this is a future-proofing process and not something that can be achieved overnight is important. But to kind of counter that, we're constantly looking for opportunities to share success stories wherever possible, because those stories is what builds the confidence to sustain the momentum and kind of demonstrate that tangible impact along the way. Actually, probably the last thing I'd say, sorry, I said the last thing was the last thing. One thing in terms of challenge as well. So we have a really strong three-way partnership between us as Arcadis, Mercer, who are our change and implementation partner, and then Eightfold are our technology partner. And I would say that real strength of partnership is really integral to navigating the challenges as they come and to drive success. So my role in the program is the senior responsible owner, and my equivalent counterpart in both Mercer and Eightfold. The three of us meet together every single week, and we have done for the last 3 years. And that's really important to make sure for all of our organisations we're really keeping this top priority, and we're supporting the team with unblocking any challenges as they arise. So sorry, I think I went on a bit there, but hopefully that gives an idea of some of those challenges and how we maybe try to counter some of those.
No, you didn't, Amy, and I think it's very helpful, and I think listeners that are at varying stages of their skills-powered journey will find that very, very helpful. As you said, it is difficult. It is a challenge. It's not just about implementing a technology platform. It's change, and by the sounds of it, you've approached it as a change program, getting all the communications in, obviously recognizing some of the challenges that you mentioned around data, which I guess why the test and learn phases are so important, because you can kind of expose those challenges, iterate, change. Because if you're an employee and you don't get very good recommendations, then you're not going to use the platform. You don't get the adoption, and they'll tell their colleagues, and then you don't achieve what you're trying to achieve as well. And I think certainly we obviously last week's episode we had Ravin Jesuthazen and Brian Fisher from Mercer on, and they were talking about this isn't easy. So you need to have reasonable business reasons for doing this in the first place. You need to think about the benefits to employees, which are many if organizations get this right, because ultimately it creates career opportunities, career mobility, opportunities to do more interesting work, maybe opportunities to earn more money, frankly, and make themselves, help elevate them within the organization. But it's not easy, which is why it does take time. And as you said, you need to do pilots, and you need that partnership with your technology and change partner if you're using a change partner as well. So I think that is really, really helpful. I think that will be really helpful for listeners. One of the things that you need of any change program is senior leadership buy-in.
100%.
How did you, and a business case. So how did you develop the business case for a skills-powered organization that aligns with Arcadis's wider organizational goals?
Yeah, great question. So I began this journey in January 2022, which feels a long time ago now, but also like it was only yesterday. But really what I'd started to sort of fundamentally join the dots between pain points that I was seeing and experiencing in the business and the insights that I was exploring from thought leaders like yourself and others in terms of the evolving opportunities in relation to skills and AI, etc. So bringing those together, I sort of crafted a narrative on how transitioning to a skills-powered organization could contribute to, not be a silver bullet, but contribute to solving some of those really business-specific pain points. So firstly, I just took that as an idea to our Chief People Officer and our CEO to just understand is there appetite to explore further. And to the conversation we had earlier, I guess the key thing here was really ensuring I was talking about pain points specific to our business and talking about the art of the possible in relation to things important to our stakeholders. So I got that initial interest secured from those. We then pitched the vision to the wider executive leadership team. And that was really to get approval and buy-in to take our thinking further. From there, we developed what I called a business case light. And I purposely named it light because doing a fully costed business case and the benefits realization and ROI to be articulated, we needed to have our delivery partners on board and therefore understand the actual costs associated. So it was that business case light that really kind of focused on potential benefits from a whole variety of stakeholders' perspectives. And then during the RFP process, for both, we went out to market with 2 different RFPs, one for our change implementation partner and one for our technology partner. And we ensured participation throughout that from diverse teams from across the business so that all those different stakeholders their voices were being heard. In particular, at that point, procurement and privacy and legal teams were on speed dial. Obviously, this is, it is very new, it is very different, it is ever evolving space. So ensuring that heightened focus on compliance and data privacy was really important. I suppose really importantly, buy-in has also been because we've designed this from the start to be business-led, and we've always talked about this being a business-led program. Of course, it's supported with strong involvement from the people function, but actually it was the leaders of our client-facing business who were the ones who took it to the executive leader team for final approval. So they went saying, us making this shift is critical for us to deliver on our long-term business plans. So the people function didn't take it, they took it. So that, from a buy-in perspective, was really important to me. I'm very privileged that our CEO is actually our sponsor. So that has been really instrumental. And actually becoming a skills-powered organisation is front and centre and part of our 3-year strategy. So our leadership team collectively are really advocating for it. I always caveat that. I realise that's a very privileged position to be in, and it's not, of course, not always feasible either to have your CEO, but also to make it part of your business strategy. But I guess to your point, my message is that top level sponsorship is really critical. You will come across challenges as business performance ebbs and flows. Naturally, the first things that look to be challenged are the things that are seen as more people related programs sometimes. So that consistent senior buy-in is really critical for that consistency of support. We also engage change sponsors from, again, our client-facing part of the business, and then they created change champion networks, and those networks are really critical for us to advocate and influence adoption throughout the business. And then I suppose the last thing I'd say in terms of getting buy-in is around the key benefits and what you're articulating there, because we really wanted to be clear that platform adoption is not a benefit. Like, that's not a success measure that we wanted. Yes, of course, by having increased adoption, you drive the other success metrics and benefits realization that you want to achieve. But we wanted to make sure that wasn't the measure. So for us, for buy-in, it was really critical that we focused on 3 benefits, and we made it really clear on the impact SPO can have on those. And then we used established mechanisms that are already in place to measure those benefits. So we didn't want a cottage industry of new measures and new ways of measuring, etc. So to really try and keep it simple and not create lots of new noise in order to do that.
No, really good. And presumably measures that business leaders recognise that you're already looking at as an organisation that are important Precisely. To the performance of the organisation. Yeah, really good. I mean,
and don't get me wrong, we've got a really long list of lots of things that we track, because we do see there's lots of places it can benefit, but we've tried to be really much more targeted in terms of where we think SPO can have a real kind of amplified benefit.
No, and I think that's a good lesson for all of us in HR anyway. We communicate too many metrics sometimes, and a lot of the metrics are HR metrics, and business leaders don't really care. So I think it's important to communicate the metrics that they do care about, because then you build momentum and you get more investment moving forward as well. Now, it's interesting, actually. I mean, again, one of the lessons, or guidance that Ravin and Brian talked about in last week's episode was that, this shouldn't be an HR initiative, it's a business initiative. And that really comes through. And what you just described there, Amy, yes, probably is quite privileged having the CEO as a sponsor, but it's also quite strategically sensible to do that, to get the CEO or at least one of the executive team involved in this, because this is something that potentially has a huge business benefit. But also, if you've got the CEO as a sponsor, that really supports, obviously, with the change program as well. And it's interesting. We've had several organisations, represented on the show over the last 5 or 6 years. And from memory, because it is from memory, and I'm getting a bit older, listeners, so I don't always remember stuff. I remember we had Unilever on talking about how the CEO had talked about their talent marketplace in their earnings call during the pandemic, when it helped them reallocate resources from businesses that were impacted by the pandemic to businesses that were growing because of the pandemic. We had Tanush Kapilashrami also on with Ravin Jesuthasan last year, talking about how they quantified that building talent from their sunset jobs to their sunrise jobs was basically £48,000 cheaper per person than going out and buying talent on the external market, which got the CFO bought in. And we've had Seagate on recently, Patricia Frost there, the chief people officer, talking about how their talent marketplace is directly correlating with the transformation they're making as an organization due to AI. And obviously you talking here as well about that. And I think that's a great lesson for those listening. I don't know if you could offer, it doesn't have to be the CEO, if you had to offer maybe one or two pieces of advice for those listening about how to get senior stakeholders on board, what would it be?
It fundamentally is talking their language, right? It's fundamentally talking to them about their business problems and being able to translate the benefits of the SPO journey to helping to solve those problems. So it is all about speaking the language of the business, using metrics that are relevant and important to the business, and then talking about what you're doing with business language rather than this is the HR reason for doing this. This is the business reason why this is so important. So yeah, it is all about the language and the metrics that resonate and are important to the stakeholders in the business you're talking to.
That's great. Well, you've talked about governance and privacy, so let's move on to governance. It's not the most exciting conversation sometimes, governance, but it's so important and it's a big enabler. A bit like the platform adoption that you talked about earlier is an enabler to help you to achieve the other metrics. It can make or break a transformation, basically, good governance. How did you go about establishing the right structures at Arcadis to ensure that this change was sustained and isn't just another passing fad? And obviously you've been on a 3-year journey, so I presume you've got good governance in place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree. For us, central to the start was really setting up that governance and stakeholder engagement at all levels across the business. Was kind of one of the, I literally remember being in a meeting with Mercer and Eightfold and Arcadis, like determining our governance as one of the first things we did, which, like you say, wasn't like the most exciting thing to start off with, but formed the real basis for how we operated. Because this is true culture change, there is so many levers across the business that have to be pulled to create an environment where becoming skills powered can succeed. You have to have those those different governance levels in place. Probably the most important one for us really is we established a steerco from the start. So from day one, we set up a steerco which had 5 change sponsors, again from our client facing fee earning business areas. We then also have on there representation from operations, from legal, from finance, from people and culture, from tech. Don't want to miss anyone out. I think that's everybody. Alongside also our senior responsible owners from Mercer and Eightfold. So they're part of our steerco as well. So again, really showing that 3-way partnership is critical. So that sort of diverse representation ensures that we've got full partnership approach, but also diversity across the whole business. And then the steerco basically approves any major program decisions. So my program team take recommendations to the steerco make those recommendations, and then that then goes to our next level of governance, which is a subset of our executive leadership team, who are the SPO decision committee. So they ensure that all recommendations that come from the steerco are carefully considered before every go, no-go phase. So we've broken our journey into horizons, and we have what we call pause, reflect, move moments at every gateway, and that's what goes to steerco and then to the executive leadership team. So that's probably the main thing I'd say from a governance perspective. But our change network that I referenced earlier is then a structure that plays a really vital role in supporting that. And the change champions through the organisation really help to drive the momentum, advocate for the programme, and influence in adoption as well. However, I say all of that as if it's all easy. As you say, sustained change is really challenging. And especially, the constant flux in the world we're experiencing at the moment, natural organisation changes take place. And this is a multi-year programme, so they will take place time and time again. So I probably sound negative when I say this, but it is a long slog. And as you say, some people may see this as the next fad, and there will be times that is questioned without any doubt. And I think for me, one of the solaces I get in this, as I talk to many peers in similar organizations, in similar roles, in other organizations, and everyone has the same. So it kind of does make you feel better that it is a natural part of a major transformation, multi-year transformation program. Because it can feel sometimes like you're not getting the traction you need, or your aspirations seem a bit out of reach in terms of the business maturity. But I think what we sort of try to make sure we're okay with is that you don't have to achieve everything in your North Star vision all at once. the transformation will take time, and every small win you've got to look at as a success to be celebrated, because by fostering a kind of resilience change network, celebrating those incremental progress, you are maintaining momentum and gradually working towards that goal. But I'm not denying that, of course, you get that challenge. Is this a fad? Do we need this? That's going to come and go. And it's just that consistent messaging and those consistent success stories as your way to kind of, explain the importance of focusing and remaining focused over what is a multi-year change journey.
Yeah, no, very good. And I guess what you talked about earlier around the data quality is a key part of that governance, and keeping that data quality up and helping everyone understand why it's important. Because it again, you can't apply things like personalized learning or career opportunities for people without that good quality data underneath them.
Yeah, no, good point.
And in terms of leadership, you talked about this being a different way of working. So there's a whole change program behind it and communication. Have you found that a change in leadership is required to support this skills powered transformation?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe not a change in leadership, but certainly a change in leadership mindset and behaviour is really critical. The shift to a skills powered organisation, as I said, I'll say time and time again, it is a true cultural change, and we need our leaders to be owning that from the front. And as we know, leaders cast a long shadow, so their advocacy, authenticity and visible commitment are key enablers for the success of any programme like this. And I suppose, like with any significant change, some leaders will naturally embrace the journey and lead it from the front, while others may resist, and it's perfectly natural. And I think it's, as with any change, it's important to meet leaders where they are to try and bring them along the journey. So that mindset and behavioural shift is definitely front and centre. One of the natural challenges, I guess, of moving to a skills-powered organisation is what I fondly call, and others do as well, talent hoarding. You mentioned Patricia earlier. Actually, when listening to the interview with Patricia from Seagate, she was talking about this on your podcast a couple of weeks ago, that ultimately leaders are currently, in a normal world, incentivized to build high-performing teams and deliver exceptional outcomes for their clients. And the very idea that talent will go out of their teams and flow to opportunities elsewhere can feel really counterintuitive and against how they're traditionally incentivized. So it does take time for leaders to kind of fully embrace the benefits of the approach. And we're still very much on that journey, because, it's not until they recognize that they have access to incredible talent from elsewhere in the organization that they might not have counted afterwards, that they could trust that actually that what they give up will be balanced by what they gain and ultimately will perform better overall. So that's definitely still a journey we're going on. But I suppose for me, at the same time, SPO aside, I'm really conscious that we're at a point in the world where leaders today are being asked to unlearn so much of what they've learned over time and relearn to lead in a world that looks entirely different, even if you're not on the skills-powered journey, right? So AI human collaboration is the new norm. Work increasingly is requiring those dynamic network teams where talent, whether it's internal, whether it's external, whether it's gig workers, whether it's AI, is going to need to flow seamlessly to where it's needed. And that's not just in the skills-powered world, right? So I think, all of that challenges traditional leadership models, which quite frankly have been based on power, authority, hierarchy, control. And instead, leaders need to embrace new ways of working that are prioritizing flexibility, agility, collaboration, and adaptability. So I think for me, the expectations for leadership are shifting in parallel with the SPO journey, because leaders, and Ravin talks about all this all the time, right, that leaders have to think paradoxally, and they need to navigate ambiguity. They need to thrive in an age of continued disruption. So if your leaders aren't starting to anticipate those forces, those trends and those signals to prepare now for the workforce and work styles in 1, 2, 5 or even 10 years time, then you're too late as an organization. So I think for me, just you asking that question makes me think that the transformation isn't just about building a skills-powered organization. It's actually reimagining leadership itself to meet the demands of an ever-changing world. So it's a big ask, but actually it's a really exciting opportunity for leaders to evolve and to really help shape their organizations and grow themselves alongside that organizational change as well.
No, very good. And we'll come back a little bit probably after this question, actually, because I've got an article that you wrote for Mercer, actually. There's a great quote. I'm going to ask you to talk about that, which is the currency of skills. So you can have that in the back of your mind a little bit. You talked about, you obviously you've got a number of measures that you're looking at to understand the success of the skills-powered organisation. You talked about 3 key measures that obviously you're communicating to senior leadership to show the progress that you're making. And rightfully, a lot of people focus on return on investment because, as you said, it's a mammoth task. And if you're not getting a return on investment, then why do it? But I know when it comes to the early stages of a skills transformation, it's not always about the numbers. How do you assess the less tangible benefits, things like talent mobility, employee engagement, overall job satisfaction, maybe retention of key people within the organisation, those sorts of things?
Yeah, I think, as you say, probably it's one of the challenges I should have talked about earlier. One of the biggest challenges is managing expectations. So despite, as I said earlier, emphasising that this is a multi-year journey and the benefits will be realised further along the path, people naturally want to see and experience results sooner. So I think communicating that whilst immediate gains might not always be feasible, each step is building towards that longer-term success. And that does require patience, resilience, and a focus, as I said earlier on, I guess, celebrating those small wins along the way, because they are ultimately crucial milestones in that longer-term transformation. So, as we acknowledge, we are early in the journey, but we are seeing some promising signs of progress. So our time to hire is trending downwards, and that obviously does have a direct commercial impact for the business, which is really important when talking to the business. We're already seeing some promising signs around an increase in the number of internal hires, so that search for internal talent before the costly exercise of going external. So the foundations we're laying are helping us to improve that talent visibility, and mobility is starting to take effect. We've also actually been able to calculate the financial impact of work that's been completed through gigs, so able to show the actual impact on EBITDA. So helping to us to demonstrate how the flexible approach has enabled us to complete projects that without gigs, we actually might not have been able to find the talent to complete. So some of those things we're starting to be able to talk about. Beyond the numbers, we are seeing less tangible, but as you say, equally important benefits in terms of talent mobility improving. We've got some really lovely and really impactful success stories of individuals who've been connected to projects either as part of a gig or a short-term role that was available, and it's something they wouldn't have been able to access before. And that's, the result of breaking down silos and that transparency around skills and opportunities. But also through gigs, some really great stories of where through doing a gig in another location or another team, someone's actually then converted that to a permanent opportunity and followed their career aspirations and goals and moved somewhere else. So not only does it mean we're completing work for our clients quicker and with the best talent, but we are starting to see that we're fostering that collaboration across different sectors whilst also supporting employee growth as well. And I suppose from an employee engagement perspective, skills are becoming more of vocabulary in the business. I'm not naive enough to be convinced that everyone's speaking the same language at the same time or fully understands the concept of skills, but it is really encouraging to see the shift in dialogue across the organisation, because for me, it's those small cultural changes that are early indicators that transformation is sort of starting to take hold.
And in the article I referred to, Amy, which is on the Mercer site, and we'll put the link to this in the show notes, because it's a great article and it talks about some of the stuff that we've been speaking about in this episode. You've got a quote, and I've got it on my screen opposite. That's why I'm looking at that, not at you. It says, in a skills-powered organisation, skills become a currency of the business. It is skills, not jobs, that underpin every talent process throughout the employee life cycles. I don't know if you could talk to that a little bit. Obviously, you're looking at skills across the employee life cycle, from hire through to retire, if you want to call it hire to retire, but development, internal mobility, et cetera, et cetera. What does that actually mean? And again, maybe you can talk to that as being part of the change program around how you communicate that the focus is going to be and is starting to be on skills rather than jobs, which is obviously something that people are used to, I guess, particularly if they've been working in Arcadis for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess probably twofold answer to your question. In terms of the skills underpinning all we do, we, rightly or wrongly, decided to approach this as a holistic change program where we looked at how we would move to skills underpinning all people processes around the whole employee life cycle. Other organisations absolutely have chosen to just focus on, certain moments that matter in that employee experience. We have decided to look at how we move to that across the whole employee lifecycle. So we've approached our program in horizons. So we've broken it down into 3 horizons. So we're kind of, I guess, slowly working around what we call domains around that employee lifecycle. So that's how, and for each one, we basically have sprints, and we do real deep dives into how's that done now, how could it look different in a skills world, and what does that mean in terms of how we need to change processes, tools, systems, ways of working, whatever it might be, in order for skills to become, as you say, the currency of work embedded in there. So that's, I guess, from a overall program change perspective, how we're sort of slowly working around that. From a skills not jobs, work not jobs piece, still very, very early. We're a 135-year-old business full of engineers and scientists. If we start to say jobs aren't going to exist and it's all about skills, we'll lose everybody on day one. So we're not there yet. We are very much kind of recognizing that by talking in the language of skills, we're able to help people to understand that it's their skills, not the job that they happen to be in a little box on an organization chart, which is where they are adding value. It's their skills rather than their current job, and therefore helping people to see through things like gigs how we could break down a job into a smaller unit and enable different people to be part of delivering to that job. So it's kind of incremental actions like gigs and conversations that are starting us on that journey. I'll probably talk in a bit about you've then got the task element to that as well, right? So the skills journey is now being amplified also with the task journey, and actually how you break down a job to a task to a skill. So we're kind of navigating that at the moment as well. But yeah, certainly, Ravin would love us to be in a position, I'm sure, where we're not talking about jobs anymore, and we're all talking about skills, but it's certainly a journey for us. And we're very much early on in our understanding about what that really means.
Brilliant. And actually that leads nicely to this question. As you've gone through the journey, have there been any surprises? I'm sure there've been many. Have there been any surprises or lessons learned that you didn't expect at the start? And maybe what's been the most eye-opening for you so far?
Yeah, I mean, going through this journey, you encounter unexpected surprises and valuable lessons every hour. It's unfortunately it's a part of the course. I mentioned earlier the job architecture. That the consistency of application of that probably wasn't something. We'd only moved to a global operating model from a regional country model just the year before we started this journey. So we didn't have visibility yet of true understanding how it wasn't as consistently applied as we'd hoped. So that was probably a realization that came a little bit too late, and I'd certainly would love to have known that sooner. But I suppose we knew it from the start, but the biggest realization, or probably reinforcement rather than realization, has just been how critical that human element is. It's just such a vital role in all of this. And I can't emphasize that enough. But I suppose the bit, anyone that's heard me talk about any of this before will know I always talk about is the importance of investing in change. I always say, if you're creating your budget, when it comes to your investment in change, double it again, multiply it by 4, add some more, and times that by 2. Like, you just can't have enough investment in people and people and budget in terms of that change management expertise, because this is just such a significant mindset and behavioural shift. So again, not necessarily surprising, but probably I'd underestimated quite how much that investment in change is so critical. So us having Mercer on board is amazing, but we probably need like 20 times their team plus 20 times our team to even get close to truly navigating the complexity of the change that this really is.
No, it's really good. Really good to hear you be so candid about that as well. I think it's really helpful, again, for people listening. So let's talk a little bit about where you see this going over the next few years. And I appreciate it's very hard to look even forward 3 months at the moment with everything that's happening in the world. How do you see the skills-powered transformation continuing to evolve over the next few years, especially as skills demands seem to be changing faster than ever? And maybe as part of that, maybe if you can talk to, as you sort of look to the AI kind of future or present and future, how do you think this is setting you up as an organization to thrive in that era rather than to be trying to play catch up with everyone?
Yeah, no, great question. I think with the pace of change, for us, our focus is on really ensuring that as a business, we remain agile and future ready. So that I guess is front and center. And to your point around readiness for the future around AI, like this can only be helping us on that journey. So we know that the skills our organization need will continue to evolve. So our priority has got to be on how we build a more scalable, adaptable framework that is now enabling our people and empowering our people to grow and pivot alongside the changes. So that's kind of the core focus. And looking ahead, we really want to focus on deepening our use of skills data to really drive smarter workforce planning, as you referred to earlier, and aligning our talent strategies even more closely with our client needs as well. And at the same time, so the data piece and really unpacking how we use that data and how we tell stories with that data, for me, is the really critical next step. At the same time, recognizing that we need to at some point tackle the really big, complex, hairy, scary challenge of how you reward for skills in an environment where demand for skills are, as you say, constantly changing. So I don't know how, but developing a dynamic approach to skills-based rewards and incentives and benefits is going to be really crucial for remaining competitive and retaining key talent, and for our people to see there's benefit in this for them of going on this journey and upskilling, reskilling, cross-skilling, etc. At the same time, I alluded earlier or mentioned earlier that I see task intelligence as an increasing kind of part of the mix. I'm not quite sure how yet, but because ultimately the way I see it is it's tasks, not skills, that get automated. So being able to, as you talked about earlier, deconstruct jobs, you deconstruct the job into a task, not into a skill. But then once you know the tasks, then you can look at the skills needed to deliver those tasks. And that, to your question, allows us to then go, okay, well, once we've done that, then let's understand what of those tasks can be done by humans, what can be done by machines. And that then allows us to double down on the skills needed for the human elements. So ensuring we're focusing our investments around building, buying, borrowing, botting, talent, whatever we choose to do, in the areas that are determined to be by machines or determined to by humans. So that's kind of the ambition of where we get to. I think another really exciting focus for me in the skills journey is the reinvention of capability development. So I also lead capability development for Arcadis, and I really see the opportunity for us to really embrace AI in how we can achieve a different approach to capability development, whether that's through identifying skills clusters, accelerating pathways, unlocking personalized career opportunities, or designing at scale using AI. I think the possibilities of AI to transform how we develop and empower our people are immense. So I'm really keen, and my team are already working on how we can look at that further. I'm also really intrigued by the use of digital twins of employees. So we've started working with Eightfold just to understand more about their thinking in this area. I was at Cultivate in London a couple of weeks ago when they kind of launched the digital twin of employees, and I can really see how digital twins of our experienced workforce, being able to capture and retain their expertise and the insights of senior leaders and technical gurus, and making sure their knowledge is accessible after they retire. I can see some real benefits, but I can also see so much privacy challenge, and I can't even comprehend how you start the journey. But I'm really excited about that, and I see that as a critical part of the journey, whether it's skills specifically or just the evolution, as you say, in terms of how we're using AI in our organizations. And I think, I'm always asked, when will we be a skills-powered organization? Like, when is this going to end? And I just think it's never going to end. Like, this is ever evolving. As you say, the new opportunities to think about how we work and the new opportunities with AI and AI agents and agentic AI, et cetera, to future-proof our people and the business, it is going to be ever evolving as the world of work continues to change at that unprecedented pace. I think last week, actually, in your conversation with Ravin and Brian, I think you used the quote came up that's always talked about, change has never been this fast, but it'll never be this slow again. I think you sort of challenge whether you believe that or not, but that's certainly how it feels at the moment. And I think for me, that perfectly captures why becoming a skills-powered organization isn't a destination. It's just a continuous journey of adaptation, innovation, and reinvention, and even more amplified with, as you say, all the changes in AI and tech coming as well.
No, really good. And yeah, I mean, I was just being devil's advocate because things are changing very fast, and you can't imagine it being that slow again. I smiled because I think I remember using that quote in a and we can't actually attribute it to anyone because I think everyone says it, but I remember using in presentations.
I think it's said in so many different ways.
It is.
Yeah.
I remember using presentations and keynotes back in 2018, 2019, but it's even more true now. So maybe it is. And I think what's interesting listening to you is AI is making skills more and more important and making them change faster and faster. But it's skills that you need in an organization to actually be able to thrive with AI as well. So there is that symbiotic link between the two, which makes which I guess for your role is really interesting because you're kind of bringing it all together a little bit there as well. Amy, look, been great to hear about the Arcadis story. I'm going to get you onto the question of the series now before we wrap up, and it'd be interesting to see how some of the work you're doing actually impacts this particular question. But no, it's I'll say it again at the end probably, but this is one of the best, I think, examples I've heard of building a skills powered organization and all the challenges involved, but what the aims are as well. So thank you very much for that. So the question of the series is, how can HR help the organization understand and improve team effectiveness?
Good question. Conscious we've only got a minute to go, so I'll be brief.
Oh no, we can be a bit more if we need to be.
I mean, I think personally, I have a really strong view that I think people teams can help drive team effectiveness by facilitating that integration of AI and human collaboration. I think that is where we've got a really important role to play. I think as businesses implement AI, both in terms of the way they work, in terms of tools, and really, use those to enhance decision-making, streamline workflows, we can help teams to understand how to leverage that technology to boost productivity, innovation, and creativity. And really helping, as a team, we can help support in developing the skills that complement those AI capabilities and fostering that culture of continuous learning and adaptability and recognition that it is working with and alongside and together as a team with AI, as opposed to AI supporting what we do. And I think additionally, in terms of navigating the ethical and interpersonal aspects of AI human collaboration to ensure that balanced, effective partnership, and really making sure we're focusing on trust and really making sure we're helping our people to really trust in both the AI, the opportunity it brings, the power it can bring, how it can help them as an individual grow, develop, be more innovative, be more creative, and grow as an individual. But at the same time, trusting in how you're using AI in the business and, the importance of, that the privacy around that, etc. So I think that is a real place we play along, of course, with our legal privacy counterparts and, of course, our tech counterparts as well. But I think really it's got to be this future-focused approach that's going to ensure that teams are equipped to be effective and excel in a dynamic technology-driven environment, which we are all already operating in, let alone how much more that will become in the coming weeks, months, years.
No, very good. And I think it's pretty clear that AI is an enabler on one side, but it's a disruptor on the other. And I guess as an individual or a manager, you've got to face into the disruption and try and use it to enable you to cope with the disruption. So it's going to be a fascinating few years as we see it play out and see.
Fascinating and slightly scary.
Yes, slightly scary. I'm quite pleased. I'm coming towards the end of my career, I must admit. So, although a few years yet, I suspect. Amy, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. As I said, I think this episode is really going to help those listeners that are some way onto their skills-based journey or thinking about getting onto using skills more in their talent, their approach to talent management, and obviously linking it to business strategy as well. So before we part ways, can you let listeners know how they can follow you and all the great work that you're doing at Arcadis?
Firstly, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on the show. After being an avid listener of the podcast every single week for so long, I feel quite privileged and a little bit starstruck to be in front of you. It's like your voice is really real when I talk to you. So really lovely to be here. So thank you. I was worried you were going to ask me this because I know you always ask everyone. Yes, if you'd like to follow our journey and the work we're doing at Arcadis, you can find me or Arcadis on LinkedIn, but I'll admit I'm not always the most active as I should be, particularly considering how much I learn from others and their awesome shares on LinkedIn. So this will trigger me to make sure I'm more active. But I do pop in and I share insights and updates from time to time, and I'll certainly share this podcast. But yeah, I'd love to connect with others. I love having the conversation with people, helping them on their journey. So many companies helped me really, really early on, and every time people ask me questions, it helps me to learn more as well. So really, always happy to continue the conversation. But yeah, LinkedIn for both me and Arcadis as a whole.
I'm pleased that you listened to the show as well. That's very good to hear that, Amy, and thanks for your kind words. So, and to be honest, the show's only as good as the guests, to be honest with you. I just asked the questions. So thank you very much. And hopefully, I know you're on the other side of the world to me, but you said you were in London a couple of weeks ago. So hopefully I'll see you at an event at some point in the future.
Hopefully.
That
would be great.
Love to continue learning how you're making progress on the skills powered journey at Arcadis. So thank you very much.
Thanks again, David.
In this series, we will be speaking to a range of senior leaders who are pushing a data-driven and digital HR agenda. Make sure that you subscribe via your podcast app of choice and also via our YouTube channel for free and regular interviews with the digital HR leaders of the future.